All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're on a bit of a mission today, trying to pull some, well, timeless wisdom from a really short, really direct ancient text, Psalm 100. And not just admire it, but actually apply it. Straight to the messy parts of modern life. We're less about history today, more about finding a practical blueprint. Okay, let's unpack this. The aim here is to grab the actionable stuff from this psalm. For you listening, think of this deep dive as maybe a shortcut, a way to see how gratitude and identity, the way the psalm lays them out, could build some real peace, some solid ground in, this constantly shifting world.
It really is striking how much is packed in there. If you sort of synthesize the core message, the psalm reads almost like a quick guide,
Yeah.
a manual for building that relationship with God, and honestly, for psychological resilience, too. It starts right off in verses 1 and 2 with this huge invitation. That really sets the tone for everything else.
Huge how? Like exclude.
No, the opposite. It's a call to all ye lands, everyone. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. And the key part, serve the Lord with gladness. It's totally open door. And notice the phrasing, come before his presence with singing. It doesn't feel like a command to perform a duty, does it? It sounds like an invitation to a party, a celebration.
Yeah, definitely.
It has to start with that joy, that gladness. Otherwise, you're kind of missing the whole point from the get-go.
I like that. Celebration, not a chore. Okay. But any good celebration needs a solid reason behind it, right? A foundation. Which I guess brings us to verse 3. That seems critical for defining who's actually making all this joyful noise.
Exactly. That's the anchor.
Yeah.
And it tackles, our modern identity issues maybe 3,000 years early. It said, know ye that the Lord, he is God.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that fact defines us.
Yeah.
Well, it immediately gives you this two-part truth about, let's say, your inherent worth. First, it is he that has made us, and not we ourselves. So our value isn't something we build or earn. It's just there
Yeah.
because he made us. And second, the relationship that flows from that. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Getting that sense of belonging, that you're claimed, you're cared for, that's the absolute bedrock for building trust, for having a relationship that actually sticks.
Wow. Okay. That's huge. If your whole self-concept is rooted in that something external, unchanging, it kind of solves the instability problem we all feel. But how do we, get there? How do we make that real day to day?
Right, and that's where gratitude comes in. It's framed as the mandatory way in, the operational part. Verse 4 is super specific. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise.
Mandatory.
Yeah, in the sense that it's the required posture. Thankfulness isn't just painted as a nice feeling to have if you're lucky. It's the deliberate choice, the key you need to actually connect. It's about actively looking for and naming the good that's already there.
Okay, so we've got the open invitation, the core identity, he made us, we're his, and then the posture gratitude as the way to approach what makes it all trustworthy. What's the guarantee?
That's the final piece, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's this incredibly secure declaration about God's own nature. It gives you that unchanging reference point we were just talking about. It says, the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. That's the promise. What's true about him today stays true.
Always. Always.
Yeah. So when everything else, culture, trends, whatever, feels like it's shifting under your feet, having that foundation, something that lasts across all generations, that's reliability. That's security you can actually depend on.
Okay. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Taking that ancient blueprint and laying it over our modern lives. Chronic stress, negativity loops, this weird identity crisis thing fueled by social media.
Yeah.
How does this psalm actually work as an antidote?
Well, I think it works because it demands something proactive, a proactive, positive engagement. See, most modern ways of coping with stress are reactive, right? They kick in after the stress hits.
Sure, damage control.
Exactly. Psalm 100 flips that. It asks you to reorient yourself before the day gets messy. Approaching life with gladness, maybe not always happy, clappy joy, but a chosen state of thankful engagement, anticipation almost.
Okay, I have to push back a little there, though, because someone listening is thinking, serve the Lord with gladness. That sounds like toxic positivity when my life is genuinely hard right now. How does this ancient text handle real suffering?
That's a really important question,
Yeah.
and a fair one. I think the key is distinguishing between forcing positive emotions versus choosing a relational posture. The psalm isn't saying just pretend everything's fine.
Right.
It's saying remember who made you, know that, and then choose to enter his presence with thanks. It's primarily a cognitive move. Gratitude here means recognizing that even if the situation is painful, those enduring things, his mercy, his truth, They haven't changed. They haven't failed.
So it's about what your anchor is tied to.
Precisely.
Ah,
Think about rooting your identity in, say, your job performance. The minute you get laid off, your identity collapses, right?
yeah, devastating.
But if you root your identity in the unchanging fact that you belong to God, that He made you, then the external storms, whether it's losing a job or a cultural shift or whatever turbulence hits, they don't destroy your core sense of self. You can still feel the pain, absolutely, but it doesn't obliterate you.
You're building resilience through belonging
Okay.
and linking that to the enduring truth part. If culture is always shifting, what's acceptable, what's valued, building your life on something that lasts to all generations gives you a stable center point.
Exactly.
That lets you build trust in something reliable and good instead of, I don't know, the latest algorithm or social trend.
Yes. And when the psalm talks about God's everlasting mercy, think of that as the guarantee of a reliable system, grace that doesn't run out. That kind of certainty is the polar opposite of the uncertainty in, the economy or even some relationships today. It's a constant source of security.
Which brings us straight to the practical side. This wisdom isn't just for thinking about. How does making a joyful noise actually look on a Tuesday morning commute? Or, doing dishes.
Right. It's definitely not just Sunday morning stuff. The application is about weaving that spirit of gratitude into the everyday fabric. When it says, enter his gates with thanksgiving, it implies thankfulness should be the very first step you take, consciously.
So, like before checking the news or scrolling social media.
Exactly. Avoid starting the day by feeding the anxiety monster. Instead, maybe use those first few moments awake to deliberately name, say, 2 or 3 specific things you're grateful for. Right then and there. A quick gratitude pause.
It sets a different filter for the whole day, doesn't it? Shifts from lack and worry to maybe abundance and security.
It really does. And that's the difference between just going through the motions, like maybe saying a quick prayer while your mind is already racing ahead, and that heartfelt praise the psalm talks about. That joyful noise. It's a mindful connection back to that source of stability and this active reorientation, focusing on God's constant goodness. It genuinely changes things, moods, relationships, even of our physical stress response. There's good data on that now.
So it strengthens the relationship itself.
Absolutely. Starting the day acknowledging his goodness and mercy.
Yeah.
That's you actively choosing to trust the unchanging reality over the chaotic, changing circumstances. Is the continuous practice the psalm seems to call for.
So when you boil it all down, Psalm 100 is this incredibly simple foundational formula. Choose joy, practice gratitude, anchor your identity in belonging to God. And these aren't just random acts. They're about constantly turning back towards that stability, that unchanging character.
And that is basically the definition of real trust, isn't it? Trust isn't blind faith. It's built on knowing. Knowing who we are, his creation, his people, and knowing who he is, always good, always merciful, always true. That's the solid ground. You can't really build on anything firmer than that.
Which means this deep dive doesn't really end with a neat answer, but more like an invitation. The information's pretty clear, and that promise of stability is definitely compelling. So what does this all mean? How will you apply this information in your life?